In this presentation, we want to touch on the tool of bank feeds. Bank feeds within QuickBooks Online is a great tool. It can help you to actually connect to your bank account and help you to import transactions from the bank account. We're going to have a section on bank feeds after the main portion of the course. So if you wanted to jump down to that section on bank feeds, you can. However, we do recommend going through the actual course before that for a few different reasons. The main reason is you really need to understand how the functioning of QuickBooks works. In other words, many times if we hear that we can download all the transactions from the bank account, our hope is that we could just connect to the bank account and download all the transactions for a certain time period and all of our bookkeeping is basically done. It's all been taken care of. And that's not quite the case. It's not quite that easy. And that's an understatement. It's not that easy at all. It does help with the data input on downloading the information, but we still need to know how to apply that information. We still need to know what's the chart of accounts, how are we going to set up the forms, how are we going to use the forms in order to take this data that has been input into our system and apply it out. So in other words, if you jump right into the bank feeds and you set up the bank feeds and then you download, say, a whole year's worth of bank feeds, what's going to happen is you're going to have an overwhelming amount of data that you don't know quite how to format because you don't understand how the forms work. So what you really need to do is understand basically the normal accounting cycle. And once you have the normal accounting cycle down, then think about how you can put the bank feeds into that accounting cycle. Because there's a couple different options you could do in that format as well. If you're talking about a full accounting cycle, then you're typically going to be wanting to enter the input into the QuickBooks and use the bank as kind of a double check that the input has been done properly. However, many people, if you're on a smaller business and you want to rely much more on the bank, then you're on more of a cash basis system. And then you can set up the system a bit differently and basically be using the bank feeds on more of a cash basis system. So in other words, what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the full accounting system, look at the different forms that are going to be used within it. Then we'll touch on the bank feeds and notice that setting up the bank feeds is usually not a big problem. You can set up the bank feeds fairly easily and start to import the transactions. What you want to do is then think about your personal accounting system that you have set up. Now that you have an understanding of how the forms work, how the bank feeds will then fit into it, how when you download the bank feeds, how they're going to fit into the flow of your information into the QuickBooks file, and you're still going to have to basically assign out the forms to the bank feeds that come in. So the cash that's going in and out of the bank will still need to be assigned some type of form, and that's what we're going to be focusing on as we go through the course. What are the forms? How do they affect the financial statements? And you could take that knowledge then and apply it to the data that will be downloaded when you do the bank feed connections.